Hello everyone, in this video I would like to discuss some basic concepts related to the introduction to TEYL, which is also feedback for your first assignment. Let's get started. First of all, we would like to discuss about the characteristics of young learners. I took these characteristics from Pinter 2006. So who are young learners? Young learners are the ones learning at preschool or are in the first couple of years of schooling. And then they generally have a holistic approach to language and language learning. That means they understand meaningful messages but cannot analyze the language yet. They have lower levels of awareness about themselves as language learners, as well as about process of learning itself. And then they have limited reading and writing skills even in their first language or mother tongue. They are also generally more concerned about themselves than others. This does not mean that children are selfish, but they are still in the phase of being egocentric, which means that they think about themselves more and then they care or know about themselves more than they do to others. Yeah. And then they have limited knowledge about the world. So they only base everything on what they see or what they hear. Yeah. And what they have experienced themselves. They also enjoy fantasy, imagination, and movement. So in order to be able to design and to implement more effective instructions for teaching English to young learners, we do have to know all these characteristics. When we talk about young learners learning, we also talk about basic literacy. Since our field is language learning, to be more specific, English language learning, so I will not discuss about other aspects of literacy, such as numerical literacy or even digital literacy. Yeah, so our focus will be on the literacy related to language learning. So that's why we have what we call the beginning reading. Our young learners are beginning reading and then beginning writing, and they are doing these learning or the learning processes under the framework of home literacy at home with their parents or caregivers involved, and then also at formal schooling or preschools or kindergartens or primary schools, elementary schools. And then they also start learning a second or foreign language. In our context, in Indonesia, English is taught as a foreign language. Yeah. So even though the function for some children or for some young learners might be as a second language being spoken or being used at home and at schools, but officially in Indonesia, English is still a foreign language because we are not really using English for formal activities and formal documents. Well, some documents such as birth certificates or passports are already in English as well, like using bilingual format, but other than those two documents, the other official documents are not really using English as the official language. So that's why English is still considered as a foreign language. So when we talk about teaching English to young learners here in Indonesia, we're talking about teaching English as a foreign language. Okay, so this is a part of your assignments in the first meeting, right? Talking about a couple of misunderstandings about TEYL based on the book written by Cameron in 2001. Cameron mentioned that there are at least 2 misunderstandings about teaching English to young learners. The first misunderstanding is that teaching English to young learners is straightforward, or it's a straightforward process, which means that you don't really need to prepare anything because it's teaching to children. But in fact, we do have to have pedagogical skills. So the skills which equip us with the ability to design and to implement our teaching and learning processes in the class, which also include the classroom management skills and the content knowledge skills. In this case, because our field is English, then we have to have content knowledge about English as well, yeah? And then the second misunderstanding is that children only need simple languages or the baby-like languages. Apparently, no. So when we teach English to young learners, when we teach a language, a particular language to our young learners, we should proceed with a learning-centered approach according to Cameron 2001. We are going to explore about this approach further later, all throughout our course, course topics this semester, yeah, from simple to complex structures and concepts. Okay, what are the language skills and elements that our young learners should learn, especially related to English language? Similar to what adult learners are learning, yeah, we have 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then we have 3 main language elements, namely the phonemes or sounds. This is related to pronunciation. So when we have the oral skills like listening and speaking, then we concern as well with the phonemes or phonological elements. And then we have morphemes, or the basic units, the smallest units of language, which include as well words. So the form and the meaning of words, vocabulary in other words. And we include this in all of these skills. We include these morphological elements in all of these skills. And then the last one, we have syntax or grammar. And of course, grammar is also included in all of these language skills. Okay, now let's talk about the TEYL context in our country, Indonesia. Currently, we are using the National Curriculum 2013. So the primary school in Indonesia does not include English as either a compulsory subject or as a local content. Before this curriculum, once upon a time, English was compulsory for primary schools, and then afterwards it became a local content. But nowadays, because we are now using Curriculum 2013, or K13, English is neither a compulsory subject nor a local content. So, the teaching of English to young learners might vary from one school to another. There are schools which focus heavily on teaching English, just like a compulsory subject for them. But there are also schools that do not teach English at all because it's not even a local content and they don't really have resources, including English teachers, to teach English in the school. And in our context, just like what I mentioned earlier, English is taught as a foreign language. And then there are also some challenges that we face due to equality. There are some very good schools which include English in their curriculum, and there are also some schools which are lacking of resources, including availability of teachers, so they don't really teach English. So we have somewhat, to some extent, a gap due to this inequality. Yeah? A gap in the curriculum, a gap in the implementation of teaching English to young learners. Okay, so we have discussed briefly some important points: characteristics of young learners, and then the skills, then also language elements to be taught to our young learners, in particular in terms of teaching English, and then the TEYL context in Indonesia, and also related to your previous assignment, we have talked about a couple of misunderstandings of teaching English to young learners in general, based on the main reference that you have. Now, what you have to do as your next assignment, after watching this video, please write down a comment to summarize what you have learned, to summarize what you have understood from your first assignment, from reading the main reference from Cameron, and from watching this very brief explanation from me. Write down your comment right there, down there in the comment section of YouTube, and then we will discuss together what you have learned regarding all these introductory concepts for teaching English to young learners.